Hey guys, welcome back to Reverse 1999. In today's video, we're going to be going through a tier list for the game. Now, before we get into it, tier lists in games like this, where it's a PvE, a more story-focused game, you don't need to stress about it. This is just for those that enjoy, and at the end of the day, you can play any character you like and do perfectly fine in the game. Now, also, it is a new game hype. We're going to do a $100 giveaway in this video, so to enter the giveaway, just be subscribed and leave a comment on the video, and you'll go into the draw, and I'll announce the winner about a week away in a community post. But before we jump in to start looking at the tier list, we're going to be looking at Pridewin's tier list, and I have to give a massive shout out to Antilla and the team at Pridewin. I've learned a lot through the team at Pridewin, and also through my experience in playing on the build that I was given for the sponsorships that I had on my other channel, and so I'm going to try and not just show you guys the tier list, but explain every character as in-depth as I can. Not every character, we're only going to look at the top few tiers, because the great thing is most people should be able to build teams with pretty high tier characters just based on what we get given to us in the game, which is fantastic. But I feel like that's enough disclaimers out of the way. Let's jump into it. All right, so first of all, let's go through the criteria on the tier list and what we can filter by. You can filter to have CN released characters in there or off. I'm going to look at it off. You can look at early game and late game. The difference between early game and late game is characters at low insight being low ascensions, low investment. You don't have the greatest psi cubes slash weapons if you refer to them from other games. So the early game is just lower investment. The late game is more investment. Honestly, I prefer to look at the late game because the early game you don't spend a ton of time there, in my opinion. You do level your main characters up pretty fast. So I'm going to look at the late game tier list without CN characters released. Just know that there are metas that happen in CN that will evolve when we look at other characters. For instance, when we look at Sotheby here, which is one of the first banners, I mentioned this in my reroll, who to reroll for video, is that as you can see that early game she's a C tier, late game she's an A tier, because at Insight 3 / Ascension 3, she has the ability that when she renews her heal over time effect, it instant procs the other heal over time effect that was already on, so she can more burst heal, whereas early game she can't do that. But the other thing is, when we go into the CN meta, even though she's still down here because they rate her on general healing, she is part of like one of the best teams in the game, paired with Changeling, because you have bursting of poisons, which are true damage, and you can deal massive amounts of damage with that. Just keep in mind, CN metas do evolve and stuff like that. So I am going to look at the standard global. Just know that there are going to be nuances when we go through things about different characters. But let's go through the S tier first of all with the damage dealing characters that we have. And honestly, I think Centurion is a cut above the rest in this S tier. And I think Charlie with high dupes, 3+ dupes specifically, becomes in a higher tier than these other ones. That is just my personal take. But in general, these are all really solid units. Now, the thing to note about this is Centurion is a 6-star that, you've got to get lucky to pull off of the standard banner or as an off banner unit on one of the exclusive banners. But she's crazy. She's got self-sustain. She's got good damage, whether it be single target or AoE. She's got damage amplification. She's just a really, really good damage dealer in general. Then we have these other 3 units being the 3 beginner banner units. So in general, everyone's going to have a decent damage dealer to start their account if they don't get lucky on anything else. I've mentioned this before in a previous video, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but Eternity, she has self-healing, she has a heal reduction for the enemies, really strong unit in general. Lilia, more crit based, takes a lot more investment, but has some really nice additional effects on her abilities when she crits. And then Regulus is a great sub DPS. She has to move every other turn to get a massive 50% crit rate increase, so she can do really massive damage whilst also supporting, because she has some defensive capabilities in her kit as well. So all these units are going to be great. Charlie obviously being a 5-star, which is fantastic, which is going to be on the Sotheby banner at the start of the game, so you can try and target some copies of her as well if you want to. But in general, in DPS, all these units fantastic, and everyone's going to have access to one of them, so you're going to have at least something to do on your account. Now, when we look at the buffers, the support, which is mainly like a buffers and debuffers, Anan Lee is kind of like an all-round unit, upgrading cards. Like in general, she's just a good splashable unit. Now, Beacorn Bloom is one I like. Once again, she's a 5-star. I like the more offensive supports. That's the kind of gameplay I play, but she has really nice offensive support. especially for reality damage, and she also has decent damage herself. She has locking out of the enemy's ultimate. She has a lot in her kit, which is really advantageous. Now, the other thing that I want to mention is we all get a free Sonetto in the game as well, and as you can see in early game, she's actually S tier, in late game she is A tier, but she has a great buff where she is both offensive and defensive buffing, so she can increase your damage, reduce the damage you take. So if you don't get anything else from the supportive type category, you can still just slap Sonetto into most teams and be pretty fine with a decent buffer that's going to help out your team. So I think she's really nice with that. The other thing that she does have is with her attacking skill, if you get it to level 2, then you can lock enemies out of using attacking abilities with that. So I think she's just an all-round great support. So once again, if you're not landing on some of these higher tier units with your summons, Sonetto is still a great choice, and everyone gets her for free. So essentially what I'm looking at here is we've got a great supportive unit and we all get a great attacking unit. So it's really nice to see that. Now healers is where it gets a little bit different, because as you can see, we got Balloon Party and Medicine Pocket here in the healers. However, now these two, I feel like healers are, it's kind of different. Now, this isn't just healers either. This is survival. So if you look here, we have Tenet, who is a shielder. So she has the annoying thing for me is it's only a 1-turn shield, but she has shielding capabilities. But just keep in mind that not all these characters are healers, so you're not going to be able to like run a DPS, a support, and just her on her own. In the early game, yes, you can get away without a healer, but in the end, you are going to need a healer. But the one thing that I want to mention is, I don't know if I say her name right, but Dicky, she is a great damage dealing healer, and I love that style of play myself, but we get her from 8 days of login. So if you play the game for 8 days, you're going to get a copy of her. So even if you don't get one of the other healers, being Sotheby, who is on her banner, or these two, you can still get her after 8 days. And until then, we're just going to tab over to the early game tier list, because this is what I've been using while I've been testing the game. I've just been using the 3-star healer, the Source, and she is completely fine. She has one ability, which is just a heal. She's got another ability, which is just AoE damage, but then her ultimate is going to reduce up to like 4 or 5 moxie, depending on how many dupes you've got on her. So she's going to really lock enemies out of their ultimates when you use her ultimate on them, so she can be played really well. But in the early game, she is fantastic. So if you had to, you could get away with using something like her in the early game. Once you get to 8 days of login, then we go over here and we can get Dicky. We can get some really nice damage. She also has true damage in her kit, which I always appreciate. So she got nice damage, but also that supportive healing tied into it as well. So that's the way you can play it, and that's what we're looking at there. Like I mentioned, Sotheby in the specific poison team, she goes up way higher, but that's where she sits at the moment. Now, the other banner that we have at the moment is going to be A-Knight. Great AoE damage dealer, becomes better with 1.4 in CN, but it's still a great damage dealer. AoE damage, or even hard to kill single target units that also have adds with them that you can kill the adds to gain his additional damage effects. Now, Druvis is also pretty good. She's not only damage, but she also has Petrify, which is hard CC, effectively stuns from other games where you just lock them out of action. However, it's not quite as good as stuns, because if you attack them, you are going to remove that petrification. So it does have a catch to it, but in general, she is going to be another great unit that we are looking at. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth into the rest of the tier list, but like I said, the rest of it is, it's one of those games where you can really get away with any character you want to get away with. So if you want to test someone out, feel free to do so. There's no limitations on you can't use any of these characters, but in general, you know, it's going to be those 6 stars and 5 stars that you aim for. But like I said, the great thing is we all get a great damage dealer, we all get at least one great support, and we all get a great healer, basically just for free through playing the game. So no matter what you do, you'll be able to construct a good basic team and then basically pull on banners depending on what you like and what you want to play with and what you're looking for. But that's a basic look at the tier list. So when you're pulling it, you know what you're looking for. You know what you've got, and pretty much, yeah, that just basically rounds it out. But like I said, pretty good stuff for free to play. Dog's barking. I'm going to head off. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, be subscribed, and go into the draw for the $100 giveaway. But I'll look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.